In this video, we're going to take a look at a blue ink by Sailor in their Kobe line, number 17. As always, there's timestamps down below so you can skip around, but if you've got the time, it really does help the channel out for you to check out the entire video. Also, down in the description is a link to the blue ink playlist, so if you wanted to see more, you can find that there. I'm an ink guy, and let's get into the first writing sample done on 90 GSM Clairfontaine. No bleeding, no ghosting. We have no feather, no spread, no shading in the stub. We do get shading spots that occur in the extra fine and in the medium. Looks very nice. Both the extra fine and medium are the same tone, both a bit lighter than the stub. Extra fine took 10 seconds to dry and medium 18. Scrubby for both does show a tiny bit of color variation. I think it shows a little nicer in the writing. And the smear test, I do not think you could recover if you smeared while you were writing. To have a range of experience with this ink, all of the writing samples are done with a Jinhao 159 with a 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X450 with a medium, and a Jinhao X750 with an extra fine. Then a Viscosity Van Gogh with a medium nib was inked up, used for a day, and used to take the notes for this video. The next writing sample is done on 52 GSM Tomoe River. No bleeding, minor ghosting, really not a big deal, super thin paper. No feather, no spread, no shading. We do get tone variation where the extra fine's lighter than the medium, and the medium's a lot lighter than the stub. Extra fine took 17 seconds to dry, while the medium took 15. Scrubby for both are giving no color variation. We're really not getting it in the writing, and the smear test says you probably could not recover if you smeared while you were writing. I agree with Vita. I've learned a lot by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. A line of ink is put down and then it's put into water for 10 to 15 seconds. And what we see appears to be one tone of blue that starts at the bottom, and you see the immediate forming of a line, very little. The rest is pushing up and gathering dark at the top. The one on the right that's let dry for 10 minutes, you see the line that's forming at the bottom and the rest that's pushing up. Now, the first one I said appears to be one blue. If you look closely at the very top of this chromatography, you actually see a separation where it drops down specifically a couple of tones at the top. So this is two blues being mixed to make this ink, one much more resistant than the other. The next writing sample is done on 80 GSM Rhodia dot pad. No bleeding, no ghosting. We get no feather, no spread, no shading in the stub, a few spots of shading that show up in the extra fine, and just a couple in the medium. Now the extra fine and medium are the same tone, both quite a bit lighter than the stub. Extra fine took 12 seconds to dry, while medium 19. Scrubby for both are showing a little color variation, and that's about what we're getting in the writing. And the smear test, you could probably recover if you smeared while you were writing. Resistance tests are done to see how this ink could be expected to perform on a page, and more importantly, how hard it may be to clean from your pen. The smear is allowed to dry for 3 days before testing. Looking at the highlighter, there's a little bit of muddiness that's occurring on the right side of the lowercase h. However, that doesn't mean that I would stop from using this ink in a note-taking situation. It's just the idea that it might make my notes look a little messier than I'd prefer, so I probably would not use it if I needed to go back and highlight. Now, water's lifting all that darker tone, but leaving that lighter tone in place. Remember I said I think this is two different dyes and one more permanent than the other? That's what we're seeing here. Pen flush is doing a little bit more than water did. You start to see some of the white of the paper coming through. So it's really breaking this ink down. And 1/3 bleach solution is removing almost all of this ink, but leaving a little kind of a haze on the paper behind. But it only took water to get this out of my pen. The next writing sample is done on yellow Rhodia paper. We do this not to see performance change, but to see tone change, especially when dealing with a blue ink, thinking of a professional environment. And here's something that's great. The blue is changed. It is lightened up a little bit, but it is not turning into a turquoise. It's still a very nice blue on this yellow paper. These are the kinds of things we need to be able to pay attention to if we work in that professional environment where we write on yellow paper. So let's be well informed. For the inks tested, the average viscosity was 2.5, with the realm of normal being from 2.1 to 2.9. Sailor Kobe number 17 has a viscosity of 1.28, so this is a very wet ink. The next writing sample is done on life paper. No bleeding, no ghosting. We get no feather, no spread, no shading in any of the writing. Now the extra fine's quite a bit lighter than the medium. And actually, when I say no shading in any of the writing, I take that back. I see some in the medium, especially in that word quick. No shading for the stub, which is the darkest tone on the page. The extra fine took 10 seconds to dry, while the medium took 17. The scrubby for both give some color variation in both, but it's not very standout in the writing itself. And the smear test you could not recover if you smeared while you were writing. For the inks tested, the average dry time was 17 seconds, with the realm of normal being from 13 to 21 seconds. Sailor Kobe number 17 has an average dry time of 17 seconds, meaning it's not just normal, it's average. The last writing sample is done on Levenger paper. No bleeding, no ghosting. We get no feather, no spread, no shading. Just some tone variation where the extra fine's the lightest tone, the medium's only a little bit darker than the extra fine, but the stub's much darker than the medium. Extra fine took 8 seconds to dry, while the medium took 14. The scrubby for both don't show much for color variation, and neither did the writing. The smear test says you could recover if you smeared while you were writing. Instead of finding inks that look like Sailor Kobe number 17, I'd prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. I went with a magenta ink from Krishna, their Njaval. Now, if you'd prefer a different complement color, then down in the description are links to those playlists. So what do I think of Sailor Kobe number 17? A solid performer, but there are so many good blues out there, I don't know that this becomes someone's standard blue. It looks good and performs really well though. So what nib and pen give the best writing experience with this ink? I really like how it looks from a wet medium nib. While I don't get the shading there, I feel that I get a very good solid tone. Now if you really want some of that shading, then what I would say is go with a dry broad, because that's really going to maximize the amount of shading that you can get from this ink. I hope you got something out of this video, and in the next video, we're going to take a look at Diamine Twilight.